The Life of Saint Anthony, by Father Ambrose Ryan. Anthony was not born in Padua, Italy, he was born at Lisbon in Portugal. The date was 1195 and his baptismal name was Ferdinand. His parents were substantial citizens and the family name was something like Bulham, according to most scholars. Augustinian, then Franciscan. Anthony Bulham received his early schooling from the clergy of the SE Patriarchal School and at 15 years of age he joined the Augustinian monastery of Saint Vincent de Fora, Lisbon. When 17, in 1212, he transferred to the Coimbra monastery of Santa Cruz and there was taught for 9 years by the very religious and very capable Canon John. The experience equipped him unusually well for the extraordinary life that was to be his. When 25 years of age, and quite likely unordained, for in those days it was normal to receive priestly ordination at 30 years, he was lifted from Augustinian monastic observance into the itinerant missionary life of a Franciscan friar minor. It is a most interesting example of the strange ways of God's providence in men's lives. The new order of friars minor had been in existence less than 20 years when Ferdinand the Augustinian crossed to it. Despite its youth, the order had made an astonishing beginning, attracting hundreds of recruits. Some of these were already found in Coimbra, Portugal, and 5 of their number boldly ventured into the Saracen-held Morocco to preach Christ's gospel. They were murdered, or, as we would hold, martyred, by the Saracens in January 1220, and their bodies were carried back to Portugal by local seamen and brought to Santa Cruz Monastery, Coimbra, Italy. At sea, a violent storm arose and the ship ran before it to find harbour south of Messina, Sicily. Here Friar Anthony was delighted to find some of his new family of Franciscans, and with these, he headed north to come to Assisi, Italy, for the famous chapter of Mass at Pentecost 1221. Unheralded and unknown, he surely saw Francis of Assisi, the founder of the Friars Minor, at this chapter, but there is no report that they met in person. It would not have been easy to do so with more than 3,000 men gathered for this unique meeting. Friar Gratian, provincial of Romagna, North Italy, took the new man under his protection and sent him to a hermitage at Monte Paolo near Forlì, and there he lived in prayer, poverty, and study for 12 months. Scholarly man and leader. The fame of Anthony, of Lisbon and later of Padua, rests on his deep sanctity and the burning zeal of his 10-year period of missionary preaching. These are certainly the highlights of his life as it has come down to us. Actually, we have too few precise details about this friar, more famous around the world than the intimately known and extraordinary Francis of Assisi. Yet a few other facts of his life deserve to be told before we write of his preaching and his holiness. These facts are: Anthony was a most capable teacher of the Friars Minor, and he was an inspiring leader in their midst. As leader of the friars, Anthony was guardian and custos of Franciscan houses in France from 1225 to 27, Le Puy-en-Velay is one, the district around Limoges is the other. And he personally founded the convent of Brive in central France where, to this day, his cult is best kept in France. Then back in Italy in 1228, he became provincial of northern Italy at the Order's Pentecost chapter. After 3 years, he retired from this onerous office to remain on in his beloved Padua. Preaching with power. There is no possible doubt about the amazing success of the man as a preacher. In sober fact he set a standard in the order of Friars Minor, a standard that was to influence many of his brethren, for the Franciscans have had great renown in Catholic history for their enthusiastic gospel preaching. Within a year of his accepting the mission of preacher, when it was known in a city or town that he was coming, shops were shuttered up and the law courts closed in order that no one should be forced to miss the event. When the crowds moving to one of his sermons crested a distant hill, some onlooker likened them to a dense flock of birds rising in flight. Curtin's words may sound more like oratory than sober history, yet they can be reasonably verified. Rimini, Italy, Montpellier, France, Limoges, France, Padua, Italy, are 4 cities and countrysides which still bear witness in memorial stones and in partly written traditions to the amazing power of his preaching, and to the crowds that listened. And these are only a few of many, many places. A new Elias, a prophet sent by God, a hammer of heretics, a burning fire, these are ancient encomiums of the preacher Anthony. Miracles. An excellent modern life of Saint Anthony by Father S. Clayson OFM, published in English by Franciscan Herald Press, Chicago 1961, holds that the saint performed only a few miracles while living, the flood of wonders came after his death. 2 of the most famous are of Saint Anthony speaking to the fish at Rimini after the residents ignored him, and the Eucharistic miracle of Bourges. The Bourges miracle is the one where the town's leading Jew challenged Anthony to back up his belief in the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist by a sign. It was agreed upon to starve an ass and then lead it before some sheaves of hay and a container holding the Eucharist, and see what would happen. The story is that the ass bent its front legs before the sacrament before attacking the hay and the Jew converted. Tradition gives us the story of the child Jesus resting in the arms of Anthony, and we also have the wonder that happened at Alès, France in 1224. Anthony was speaking to the friars in a local chapter when suddenly Francis of Assisi, then alive and well at Assisi, was seen to appear in the doorway with his arms uplifted in the sign of the cross. A case of bilocation. Padua. Padua now became a center of attraction for the holy man, and more did he come to visit the city. Then by 1229, he was a permanent resident. A born teacher, a born leader, and with superb gifts in both, he would as willingly bend his arms to wield a hoe in the field or to prepare a meal for his companions. A homely man. In the last 2 years of his brief life, he captured the city of Padua. For his Lenten courses of sermons, the crowds were enormous, Paduans and country folk, hanging on his words. It was Christ and the multitudes over again. Somehow, as you reread the meager details of Anthony's life, you form the impression, how like, in so many ways, is his life with that of the Lord and Master. In this same period, Anthony composed the only writings we have from his hand. It is a large volume of sermons and sermon notes. Death. Padua acclaims a saint. For 4 days, the people of Arcella and Capo di Ponte strove to keep his remains. They blocked the bridge over the river and cut down a temporary one. Eventually by a ruse, the mayor of Padua outwitted them and Bishop Jacopo Corrado, the clergy and friars, and a procession of thousands of people brought the remains in triumph back to the friars' church at Padua. Scarcely a month had passed when the city of Padua sent official requests to Pope Gregory to canonize their man. The canonization was held at Spoleto on May 30, 1232. Shrine at Padua. The saint, Il Santo, this is how the Paduans have always referred to Saint Anthony. Our man, our treasure, our protector. Soon they set to work to build him a shrine that would rival the magnificent church of Saint Mark the Evangelist at Venice, and this they succeeded in doing. When the new basilica was well underway in 1263, it was decided to exhume the remains and relocate them within it. Devotion to Saint Anthony. At Padua, Italy, the conventual Franciscans reverently maintain the beautiful basilica and guard the treasures of the ages accumulated around the tomb of the saint. Enthusiastic devotions are regularly conducted, and an endless flow of devotees and sightseers come and go from all parts of the world. From the frequently published lists of favors granted, consult Il Messaggero di Sant'Antonio, one can see that his cult does not diminish. Many are the special shrines of Saint Anthony in the churches of the Catholic world. From the booklet Saint Anthony of Padua, a popular saint, with prayers and devotions in his honor, by Father Ambrose Ryan, Order of Friars Minor, Australian Catholic Truth Society, 1977.